Hey there, listeners. Well, welcome to the Leadership is Changing podcast. I had a great guest that I interviewed. His name is Brent Pohlman, and he's the owner and CEO of an organization called Midwest Laboratories. Now, he currently oversees a company of about 300 employees. But in 2023, he released his first book called Leaders Look Within. And I'm going to encourage you to check that book out. But he and I had a fantastic conversation. His background and what he's done and so forth was tremendous in what he was sharing with me. But the other thing is about setting the vision for the next 10 or 20 years. And it's about building your legacy for the future. So we had a great discussion. But one thing he talked about was his thoughts or his view on artificial intelligence, AI, and what leaders should be really focusing on. So let's get into the interview. Enjoy.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Hey there, listeners. Welcome to another wonderful episode of the Leadership is Changing podcast. Great to have you here with us. I've got a wonderful guest with me today. His name is Brent Pohlman. Brent, a massive welcome to you.
Thank you, Dennis. I've been looking forward to this. Yeah, I can't wait to get into the discussion on leadership.
Me too. I've actually been looking forward to this as well. And Brent, whereabouts in the world are you today?
In the middle of the U.S., Omaha, Nebraska, and about a population of about 1 million people here.
Oh, 1 million people. Nice. Well, that's about where I am in Auckland. We're actually 1.5, I think, million now. But the whole country here in New Zealand is just 5 million. It's a little bit different. But the reason I asked that question about where you are in the world is that a lot of our listeners all around the world, of course, and they want to know where the guests are and so forth. So it's pretty cool to hear that from you. Now, I've given the listeners a little bit of an understanding about you as well, an introduction, but we would love to hear more about your background. I understand that you're the owner and the CEO of Midwest Laboratories. It's currently a company of about 300 employees, but also you're the author of a book called Leaders Look Within. So tell us more about your background.
Yeah, so I'm second generation owner here at Midwest Laboratories. My father started this company. I grew up in the business. And then we do a lot of testing in basically 3 verticals: agriculture, environmental, human health, and animal health. So we do a wide variety. We have over probably 5,000 test methods. We're a production lab. We get samples in a large volumes every single day. We're best known for pet food testing and soil testing. So 2 completely different areas, but again, one's for growers, one's for, again, pet food manufacturers, but volumes of samples, just to give you some perspective. On the soil side, we get in the fall after harvest, we'll get anywhere from 20,000 to 40,000 a day. And then on the pet food side, we get 1,000 to 2,000 a day. So we do work with high volume samples, get results out in typically 3 to 5 days. So it takes a real big staff of scientists to do that. So you have scientists doing production work, which is really cool when you think about that.
So is now, because you're into spring this time of year that we're recording, so is now the busy time for you?
Spring is busy, fall is even busier, but we've had some unusual weather here. Like February, we had 70-degree temps. Usually we have snow on the ground and 0 to 30 degrees. So we had like our all-time record February in the history of the company this year based on that. We had a day where we got over 10,000 soils, which is unheard of in the winter. So it's almost like the ag season stretched almost all year this year,
Yeah.
which is unusual.
That's amazing, isn't it? It's not just leadership that's changing, the world's changing, everything's changing. It's just, it's really, really amazing. But that's a lot of samples to test, 20 to 40,000 a day. That's huge, right?
So I want to give you a background there. So how did I end up where I'm at today? Basically, I grew up in the company with my dad. I started at the age of 15. And then through college, right after college, I got an education and a business degree. My dad and I had this pact, and he said, "You're not ready to come back to the business now. You need to go out and you need to get your own experience and then consider what that experience is like. And then at some point, maybe it would be a good time to come back to the company." So I did that. I taught for 5 years, high school, college. And then from there, I worked in the corporate world at places like Arthur Andersen, Mutual of Omaha, HDR. And then in 2005, I did come back to Midwest Laboratories as a marketing director. worked 10 years. Then in 2016, my dad and his two partners retired, and it was my dad and myself for 5 years. And then he finally retired at the age of 80 in 2020. And there's just so many lessons from 2016 to now. I think that's probably been the biggest growth. And not only in myself, but the company, just a lot of changes. And that's what I'm really passionate about is leadership and what that whole transformation was like. And that's the reason I wrote the book.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, wow. That's a cool background you've just shared with me because I find that today there are people who are the age of 60, 65, 70 going, I've got this business, I've built this business. I don't have anyone to hand it to or for them to buy it off me, whether it's family, sons, daughters, and so forth, even though they've got sons and daughters. And so they're not wanting to get into the business. I think what your dad did was really smart, the sense of go out, go and get more experiences and around the world and other places before you come back into here to make sure that you did really want to go back into that
Exactly.
organization, which was really smart. Yeah. I don't know about that's what we're finding here in the US. Are you finding that as well? That there's where do they hand the business
Oh,
to?
yeah, exactly. I was 40 when I came back. I think of my kids, I have 5 kids, they're in their 20s. I want them to experience everything in their careers and career path, everything that they want. I don't know at this point in my timing. I don't know. We can get a little bit about that with succession planning. I don't know who the next person to take over is, but I've started down that path because you do have to talk about it and you do have to have kind of a plan and initiative. Our company's been around 49 years. I still drive my wife crazy, but I say we're a 49-year-old startup. It feels that way to me because just again, all the changes that we have put in probably in the last 5 or 6 years.
Excellent. So next year, the 50-year startup. Kev?
Yes.
Excellent. So, yeah, I want to talk a little bit later on about the succession planning legacy. I think that's something we're needing to do as leaders as well, which is important because we need to set the future up. And I think that's our role and responsibility. But I'll get to that in a second. The other thing I wanted to ask was in the sense of you coming back 40 years of age, a lot more mature because of the experiences you had. For the listeners that are listening who may be well, I think a lot of, let me put it another way. I think a lot of people today aren't in an organization for 20 years, 30 years. They're in the organization they get rid of the zero, right? They're there for 2 years, 3 years. The importance of people to go out there and get more experiences before they really go off to go and do something else in life. How important is that? What should they be doing and thinking about in relation to their career?
Yeah. Looking back, obviously hindsight is 2020, but I think about it. That's how I was. My professional career, it was 5 years, 2 years, 5 years, 3 years. It was very short. I worked, and maybe you can relate to this. I wanted to work more hours than anybody else because I wanted to find the way to move up the ladder as quickly as I could. So I thought that was hard work, putting in more hours than everybody else, learning as much as I could. Just again, that was just my world was I have to do all these things because to see, make sure I get noticed by somebody or somehow get my break. I have to move from this company. I've gone so far. Maybe I go over to here. And that's all I thought about constantly, even when I was on the job. I think I was just always thinking about my next move or my next job, which is again, I don't know if that's so healthy to really think that way, but that's really the only way I was really taught how to do that. That was the only way I could see that I was going to move up.
Yeah, I do relate to it because that's what I did as well, and I think it's smart because of the way I talk about it, Brent, it's about your brand, right? Because you've got a brand as a company that you're working for, but it's you as an individual a brand that goes elsewhere as well, which is very important. So that brand has to grow, but the only way it can grow is not just because you turn up; it's because you actually are in there and you're doing a lot of work, and that's where we actually learn a lot. So yeah, I think you're right. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on with around employees too, because I don't know what they're thinking today. So I'd love to get your point of view too around it. Succession planning, legacy, that side of things. And it's good to hear that you're underway with it too, because I think a lot of organizations leave it too late or they don't think about it at all. What are you doing in the sense of you're saying you're kicking it off, getting underway with it, or well, underway with it already? What are you doing? How are you doing that?
With regards to the succession planning,
Yep.
I used to think that was a terrible word. My dad, he really ignored it. He really didn't have, but again, it's different. It's the way we were both brought up. He came from the farm and then we went to college, worked his jobs. So he was in the day to day all the time. He never knew how to get out of the day to day. He was in the day to day till he was 80 years old. And that was probably, again, that's that whole transition to leadership we can talk about. But the succession planning, I used to think that was a terrible word. I didn't want to, except when I was looking at my dad, I was like, "Hey, Dad, what's the plan? What are you thinking here?" And he would say, "I don't know. We'll figure that out sometime later." So again, what I think as a leader, and you are out of the day to day, that you want to take the company someplace. So for me, I needed some framework, and I can't remember exactly where I heard it, but I just came up with this. You know what? I need to set the vision for the next 10 years. I'm going to come this next 10 years from 2025 to 2035, the succession plan piece. I don't know what's going to happen at 2035, but I want to plan for it. I want the employees to know where the company's headed. I want my kids to know where the company's headed. And I'm very excited. You could tell I get really passionate. I get excited about it because now it's really a 10-year plan of strategy that this is what I want to put in place. This is the legacy, as you say, this is the legacy I want to build and leave in 10 years. And as we go along, obviously you can change, update it, but give yourself some time to really work it out. Give yourself a couple of years to determine, hey, are any kids interested? But don't just say, wake up one day and say, hey kids, which one of you is taking over? I need to know right now. I think that's what typically happens. And then, well, I don't care. Most families that I don't care. And then you sell it. And I know if I sell the company tomorrow, it won't be the same company. That's what drives me. I do not want to sell. No way. I get offers every single day, but I will never sell.
Yeah, it's good. Good that you're saying that in the sense of thinking about the vision, because I think that's what a lot of the younger generations are looking for. They're looking for a leader or an organization that understands the vision, where they're going, the purpose, and what I'm working for. And if it's not there, then people don't know. They're just doing day in and day out. It's just like, okay, so what? Here we go. But I think the other thing is when you were talking about it, really, I think what you're talking about here is really passing on the baton. It's if you think about a 4x100 meter relay and they're just handing over the baton, still an athlete, still out there, but it's part of the team to carry on the actual message and the vision going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Now, we're going to be talking about leadership stuff and things like that. So one question I've got for you is how did you, I know you talked about you were working with things with your dad and so forth, at the age of 15, so forth. How did you actually get into leadership though?
Well, I don't know about you, but I grew up with Tom Peters was like my idol in college. And I wrote a book. In fact, and in college, my senior year, I wrote, this would have been 80, 87, 88. It was on the In Search of Excellence book, one of his first books. And I put in there in my paper, I pulled it up the other day and it said, someday I may take over the lab. So you set the vision there, but I've always just followed his work through it all and many management books, many business books. I've got a library full of books. And I think for me, I was always trying to find leadership in a book or in something like that. And what it really led to me was leadership really comes from within. It's what you believe. It's what you value. And I wish somebody would have, I don't know if somebody should have told me that more or stronger, but you really have to find it. I can't tell you how to make you into a leader. You got to find leadership is personal. You got to find that yourself. And I think that was what the biggest learning for me over the last 7 years was, what do I believe in? And I think I had put that to the side, honestly. I think I was in so much the day to day, or I was so reactive. I wasn't even unlocking any of that. And I'd pushed it down basically. And I wasn't even using any of that.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is that we are in things day to day, as you're saying, and then we're trying to cope and there's just so much being thrown at us and we're trying to work through and navigate it. Where if we do take time out just to sit and think about things and think about leadership, learn, it's really good. And then apply it, as you're saying, which is good. But I really like what you're saying is the leadership is what you believe in or the values side of things. It's a great way of actually summing it up. Very good. Now, these books that you've talked about, the Tom Peters and so forth, and a whole lot of other things, plus people you've met and your dad and so forth. There are a lot of leaders that have been around you, right? And so the question here is a person who's alive or from history, who's your favorite leader and why?
For me, I've always loved the coaching aspect. I've coached my kids. I had some really good coaches in high school in basketball and tennis. And one of the big things for me was in the late 80s. Now, I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs football fan. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to be gone this afternoon. I'm driving down to Kansas City, which is about 2 hours away. And I'm going to pretend to be a coach. And I want to be in the room with Dick Vermeil, who was the coach at the time. And I said, I want to be in the room with this guy because I hear that his players just really love him and they'll do anything for this guy. And so I did. I went, pretended to be a coach, sat in the back, didn't want anybody to call on me. But I will never forget that experience. And I really, just being in the room with that guy, realized that this guy really speaks with such passion and care and love for his people. And who would not want to do anything for this guy? And I thought, wow, that really is powerful. And that's what a leader does. And is part of it is coaching. You have to coach the people of the team around you. And I think that really was the first really wake up call for me. What a true leadership quality was for that I really wanted, that really resonated with me, that I wanted to hold on to.
Yep. And that is really going back to probably what you said before about unlocking that potential within people too, right? So being in the room, listening to the coach, what else did you observe that was going on in the room at the time when the coach was either, well, sometimes we think, oh, the coach is there barking things at people. I don't think they are all the time. I think sometimes it's just them in the room, but they're just allowing things to happen. They're creating, the coaching will actually create the environment. What else did you
Right.
observe?
There was energy in that room.
Mm,
And that was like the first time I used to think when people say I could feel the energy in the room, I thought that was a lot of fooey. I didn't believe in it. But until you really unlock yourself and your heart and you grow your self awareness. Oh my word, you can absolutely feel the energy in the room. And you have to grow an awareness of others, the people that you're around, and really get to understand the environment you're in, as well as the people that are in it. And there is an energy there. And I think that's what I really discovered there is what is this draw? What is this energy? And again, you can walk into others and you go, oh, well, there's a bad vibe here or something's off here. But I really do believe that. But again, that really comes, I think, in your transformation as you really work at yourself as a leader. You start to see these things and actually feel them to some extent.
yeah. Do you feel like at times that we as individuals need to be ready sometimes to be able to observe or have that self awareness or actually experience things as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you can get that. Well, I know you can.
Mm,
It's just a matter of whether you want to be intentional about learning about yourself and understanding how you work, how people perceive you. And again, that's really, I think that was the missing link for me. I didn't realize when I came in, I used to come in here so serious, my head down, shaking my head, showing my feelings. I was setting the whole tone for the company like, oh my God, who is this guy?
mm,
I don't know what's going on here, but this is not good. I was the most reactive person. Somebody would say something in a meeting, I would react right away to it. I just did. That was just who I was. I'd go home, be the same thing with my wife, my kids, super reactive, highly reactive. I
mm.
just didn't want to hear it. And I think there's a protection. You can go so far as to protect your heart, what's in it, protect your values. And I was protecting, like I didn't let anybody in. I just really didn't. I don't know if that was a more of a fear or just protection mechanisms. My protection mechanisms were way too strong at the time. And I was sped up and I wasn't in a good place. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't sleeping right. And again, it's all those things together that I was a difficult person to be around. I know I was.
I'm glad you've said this because I think there's a lot of leaders like that today. And that is, they just are overwhelmed. There is just so much going on. And it is that seriousness and that, oh, I'm a business or I've got this title type thing. And I'm like, hey, it's not about being loose and on that. I'm not talking about that. It's about also bringing that energy, but bringing the right energy to the scenario. Because you were bringing an energy. It may have been more of what we call a steel energy or that
Yeah.
kind of thing, but it's just the different energy. What did you do? Well, first of all, how did you realize what was going on in that scenario, and what
Well,
did you do to
I
fix
think
it?
Yeah, what it really ultimately did was it led to negative self-talk. I think
Wow.
my negative self-talk was so strong that when I actually had to work with a coach on it, and it was so bad that she actually made me wear a rubber band around my wrist. And every time I had a negative thought or I said something negative, I had to snap myself and write down why I was that negative. My first day, I'll never forget, I had 35 times that I said something in one day that I said something negative about myself. By the end of that month, I was down to 0. It took me a month to work through my negative self-talk. But I think that was, again, the openness, the awareness of who I was becoming and how reactive I'd been, and that I needed to get some help. I needed to get one, take care of myself. You have to take care of yourself if you're going to take care of others. And it really is. I used to think that self-care was selfish. but you really, and that was my mindset. Anyone who did self-care, I'd hear about people going to the gym or doing these things, massages or anything like that. I thought they were just selfish, but you really do. There's a point where you realize you have to do that stuff. You have to take care of yourself. You have to be strong and have a great mind. You have to bring your A game every single day if you really want people, if you're going to have the respect of people and you're going to respect them yourself. So it was really, that was that whole process of learning those things and taking care of myself first before I take care of others.
I love it. The other day I was talking to someone, Brent, about it similar to this, and I was saying to them about if you think about a racehorse that is out there racing all the time, they can't do it every single day. They can't be out there racing all year. So they'll put them out into the paddock for 2 or 3 months type thing. Why do they do that? They go out there to reset, recharge, and so forth before they bring them back in again slowly to build them up. I think we need to do that as leaders as well. We need to go home and relax and do that. You need to take the weekends or whenever you need to do whatever's the right thing. But listeners, Brent and I are not saying that you're going to sit back and be lazy. And that. We're not talking about that at all. What we're saying is that you've got to look after yourself before you can help everyone else.
Exactly. And there's ways to do it. One way, I worked with another coach. He worked with athletes, and I wear this thing called a whoop. Have you heard of a whoop? It measures your sleep. It measures your activity, your strain. And I look at those numbers every single day and an HRV. If my HRV, my heart rate variability is super low. When I started with this, my HRV was 0 to 5. I was highly reactive. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't getting enough exercise. Today, my average HRV is probably in the way between 40 and 60, which is really a lot more energy. Definitely have a lot more energy. And it just, again, it shows that you're getting enough sleep, you're taking care of yourself, you're eating right. And those are the metrics I use. So I wear it all the time. And that's what really, again, I use those as my measurements basically to know where I'm at and how I'm good. And if I have a low HRV, I know, hey, I'm susceptible to really highly reactive pieces. I need to watch what I say. I need to really be careful that I don't go too far one way or the other.
Yeah, excellent. All righty. So your favorite leader, who is your favorite leader and why?
Oh gosh, my favorite leader right now, I've really been intrigued by Patrick Holmes. He's won the Super Bowl a couple of years in a row. I don't understand. This year was a really fascinating year because his receivers kept dropping the ball, and yet he believed in his team. He was pretty much written off that they were going to get back to the Super Bowl, and they did. He's a young guy, but he also wears a whoop if you ever look at his wrist. But he measures his energy. He works hard with a trainer all the time. He knows that he has to bring his A game all the time to his team, and they depend on him. So I just really been fascinated that this guy with all this ability can really lead a team, even at a young age. He can really lead those players around him.
Yeah. So have you actually met him personally?
No, I haven't.
All
No, I
right. So
haven't.
here's my next question for you. If you two were sitting on a park bench having a coffee together, would there be one question you would love to ask him?
Let's see. How do I say this? How do you keep your teammates motivated and always ready to win and never give up? Because they never give up in those games. How do you do that with the people around you? How do you do that? Because I feel like he does it. Even if somebody, again, drops the ball or whatever, he's always there and he continues to lift those guys up. How does he do that on a consistent basis?
Yeah. And I think that's,
And he gets frustrated too. We're all human. We all get frustrated, but he does it more and more than I've ever seen any other player do that.
yeah. And I think there it is. It's just what you said there was that he continues to lift them. He continues to be there for them. It's like the rock. They're there to help them move them on and inspire them and to keep going.
Right. And you said something earlier. You said we have to have a strong why. And that was probably the other piece of being a leader is we have to develop our own why. I had whys for a long time, but as soon as somebody would ask a question, I realized quickly that it wasn't very strong.
Mm.
And so it wasn't really till I owned that why, which mine is I'm a person of faith who coaches people up and leads from the heart. I say that every single day. And that's what really drives me every single day to get up. I get excited to come to work. I get excited to work out every morning, but it's part of my routine is I have to have a routine every single day. And I get really excited every single day, whether it's work, whether again, I'm on vacation, those type of things. I have to have that as part of my routine every day.
And having a routine every day is really important. It gives you that structure. It gives you that things that you need to do. It gives it with flexibility too, because we're humans and life happens. And so Yes, we have our routines, but at least it may not be perfect every single day, but at least we're working towards it. Mm.
Yes.
Now, the show here is called Leadership is Changing. When I say that title, that statement, what does it mean for Brent?
I think when I hear leadership is changing, you better be growing all the time. You better be learning all the time. I'm really excited about the 5 different generations right now that I work with. The young people, I think, helps you keep young, even to the fact where I don't think I mentioned this, but the first part of this year, January 3rd, I thought I was in my 20s and I could play basketball on the company team, and I fractured my right knee. So first game of the year, here's the old guy, the owner of the company, and here he goes running down the court. He just falls and he fractures his knee. I was, on crutches for 8 weeks, and I didn't see that coming, obviously. And because I run, I do different things. But what it really focused me is leadership is changing. I had to change my routine. How do I do this? I can't run anymore. I can't do things. So I discovered chair workouts. If you Google chair workouts on YouTube, they're tough. I realized quickly how my upper body was so weak that I really needed to work on that. And I love them now. I love chair workouts. I'm going to do them till the end of May, till I go back and get the all clear. But it really forced me to, again, take all the values that I have, my health, my fitness. I love working out. How do I funnel that in a different way? And chair workouts have been like a huge blessing for me. I just love them.
Mm. So have
Took
you had,
breaking my knee to do that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, so maybe it
Um,
was that to discover something else as well. But I think, there you go, listeners, chair workouts. Sometimes they call them yoga chair workouts. It just depends. But there are some really good things. It's online. You can check them out. Very easy. Brent, I don't think it's very long on the chair either that you do the exercise activities for.
I do usually for an hour. I'll watch 10 minutes, 15. I mean, to your point, there's yoga, there's chair, there's aerobic, there's
Mhm.
strength. I didn't even had no idea. I probably have over 100 different videos down saved that I could just refer to or put up there and then start working out. But it's a great workout.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Now, also, you talked about the thing as well as around for some of us, the life is where sometimes we might think we're still the 20-year-old and so forth. But there's something else that's playing that we have to contend with every single day or experience, and that is life seems to be getting faster. Business, technology, data, from a social perspective, just getting faster and faster all the time. And we're having to try and work with that and cope with that and still lead through that. What does a leader need to do to be successful in a fast paced, ever changing world? What's your thoughts?
Well, I know the buzzword now is everyone wants AI. They want artificial intelligence. They want to go to that. I would still say stay intentional on HI, human intelligence. You have to build what I learned was by getting out of the day to day, you have to build a team around you that you can trust. And when you have that, my 3 words are people, process, and technology. It's those 3 words in that order. People first, process second, technology third. If you take care of your people and you put them in the right place, you're going to go farther with people than any process or technology. But people, process, and technology has been like my buzzword. That's what's really made us, I believe, our company. We've grown double digits for the last 5 years. And through COVID, it's all because of that,
Yep.
because of the people working with the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it too. The way the order as well, people, process, and then technology, HI, human intelligence. Excellent way of saying it. Very good. Now, you and I have been talking about leadership through the lens of a leader, but if we were to change lenses now and start thinking it from the employees side of things, and you talked about it before, and I said we'll come back to it later. Employees' expectations of leaders, has it changed?
Oh, absolutely. I think, again, employees are looking for someone that they can resonate, that really are going to bat for them, that care for them. I think one of the biggest things I've learned, and it's very simple, when we grew through COVID, everyone was wearing masks, and I started to lose track of who names. And I'm really getting back. I still don't know everybody's names, and it still bothers me. But when I see somebody in the hall, if I can say, "Hi, Mark. Hi, Susan," if I call them by name, they stop and they listen because you've made it personal. You've actually called that person by name. And I think that's really just by doing simple acts like that, really show that you care. And that's what I think people are looking at. Does the leader really care? Or is he in his corner? Or is he at home or offsite? Where's our leader at today? But if you can call people by their name, you really personalize the conversation, just even for a matter of seconds there.
The importance of doing that is strong for me too, but the importance of actually walking the floors. seeing people, talking to people. How important is that nowadays?
Oh, it's huge. I broke my knee, and I even put in my message today. I'm starting to get around into the lab areas a lot more because I basically could only go minimum distances. But I said, hey, I really enjoy walking through and seeing everybody's face because I wasn't doing that. And I'm sorry I wasn't doing that earlier this year because there is, whether we like it or not, we need to be in front of our people. I think that we're the face of the company. They want to see what the company looks like, or is the owner positive? Are we going in the right direction? They always want to ask that. Where's the company going? As we've said many times, even as we've talked here, where's the company headed? And they want to know that all the time. So we do have monthly town halls. We bring all 300. You can come, you have the option to come together in person, or you can watch it on Teams or something at your own lab department. But I think it's very vital that we come together and we give the people the opportunity to do those things.
Yeah, very good. Now, if we think about the future, leadership, where's it going? Where do you see leadership being in 5 years?
I think there's a lot more ideation, and we're going to have to get very creative. That's what I've really tasked. One of the things that we're doing this year, I don't know about in New Zealand, but here the healthcare costs are just outrageous. We are self-insured and we're trying to keep costs down. So we've actually, with our 300 employees, we've brought medical doctors and nurses on our site. We built a medical clinic 3 times a week. The employees and their families can go see the doctor during work hours, because what we found was they didn't have time during the day. They're going to urgent cares. They're going to hospital emergency rooms. Our costs were going skyrocketing. And now by bringing it on site, we're saying, hey, here's the opportunity. If you're not feeling good, go to the doctor. We want you to get healthy, as well as here's some proactive. If you feel like you need help with your diet, or or you've got certain symptoms, diabetes, whatever, here's some staff to talk to. So we feel that's really important by bringing that on campus here, making it available to them. Again, that's another ideation piece that our leaders and our directors have really come up with, which I think we need more and more of that, as the world, as you say, changes so fast, we need to look inside and really make sure that we're staying on path or doing things that are probably counterintuitive to what's happening out there.
All right. So being more innovative, bringing ideas to the table, moving or changing the way that you need to for what you need as an organization, but also what maybe the world needs or the market needs too, which is good. Yeah. And Brent, been a real pleasure talking to you today. If our listeners are wanting to get hold of you, where should they go?
CEOofyourheart.com is the website, or on LinkedIn. Absolutely. I post things from time to time on LinkedIn, but those 2 places are the best places to find me.
Excellent. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed today's conversation.
Thank you, Dennis. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. There you go, listeners. Well, what a cool conversation we've just had there with Brent. I hope you've taken notes. If not, go back, re-listen to this episode again. But I'll tell you what, there's so many things for us to think about your brand, about how you're showing up, the energy you're bringing to your role, but also the organization. Leadership is believing in others and the values that you bring to the room. Be in the room with leaders. But the other thing too would be the fact that self-care is not being selfish. It's a really important thing that we need to look at. So stay intentional, have an intent, and understand the human intelligence of business as well, which is very important. Hey, thanks for joining us. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.